Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome once again to my channel, The Value Creation Playbook. And today, in episode 34, we talk of one area which has been plaguing all across. So, from the small startups to the guy who has a moonshot to the person who's running a large organization, also franchises. So, that's what you're talking of. Why good strategies fail in execution. Let me start with a thought or a provocation. Most strategies don't fail because they're wrong. In fact, many are directionally sound, well thought through, and carefully debated. They fail because nothing meaningful changes after the approach and the slide pack gets approved. I have seen this across, as I was telling you earlier, large firms, tech firms, corporates, founder-led business preparing for it. Strategy is agreed, everyone nods, and then execution quietly defaults back to old behavior. This episode is about why that happens, and more importantly, what actually fixes it. I think that's what the key is for our survival and growth. One of the most dangerous assumptions leaders make is this: once strategy is approved, execution will naturally follow. That assumption is almost always wrong. Approval creates alignment on paper, not in behavior. People still operate within the same incentives, the same decision rights, and the same governance structure they had before. In today's environment, higher interest rates, tighter capital, more cautious buyers, you don't get credit for intent. Execution is where value is either created or lost. This brings me to the one interesting area around misdiagnosis. When execution starts slipping, the first instinct of the leaders, big or small, is always to blame people. The team isn't really strong, they're resisting change, or the most easiest of all, we need better talent. In my experience, that's really not the main issue. Most teams are capable. The problem is that the system around them hasn't changed. If incentives, governance, and decision authority stay the same, behavior will also stay the same, no matter how good the strategy is. So, what are the three or four issues that we continuously see, and you can say they're the failure points? No behavioral change is what I would say is the first failure point. Slides, as I was telling you, umpteen times don't change behavior. Town halls don't change behavior. Even KPIs don't change behavior unless they come with consequences. People change how they work when decision rights shifts, when trade-offs are enforced, and when accountability becomes real. If execution isn't changing daily decisions, what gets prioritized, what gets escalated, what gets delayed, then strategy hasn't really landed. Failure point number two: ownership dilution. This is one big area of discussion and debate, and You have this conventional RACI matrix, RACI, responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. That often doesn't work. Committees feel safe, they feel collaborative. But the way I see this, they are execution killers. I have seen strategies die slowly because outcomes were owned by groups instead of individuals. When everybody owns it, no one truly does. Single point accountability always matters. Whether you're a startup, mid-sized organizations, large corporate, or a PE-backed firm, someone needs to wake up every morning knowing they own the outcome, not the update. And this is one of my favorite talking points. Matrix. Matrix come in all shapes and sizes, and we simply love creating new matrix one after the other. How many of them are really tied to the business? Ask yourself, and you'll be surprised when you see that you're not alone. And this is why I call another silent execution killer is metric confusion. Teams get measured on activity, milestones hit, meetings held, work streams progressed. Meanwhile, the actual economic outcomes get buried deep in the deck. In the current market, this is dangerous. Buyers and investors are laser focused on cash, margin sustainability, and execution discipline. If teams are rewarded for being busy rather than impactful, execution will look healthy right up until it disappoints. Failure number four, PMO, the project management office. And and this is what I find funny. All of us know PMOs often come into the story, giving us regular updates on what the projects is happening. PMOs are valuable for coordination and tracking, but execution cannot be delegated to them. I have seen leaders unintentionally step back once a PMO is in place. Reporting does improve, dashboard does look great, but decisions slow down. Execution only works when leaders stay directly accountable for outcomes. PMOs should support execution, not absorb responsibility for it. The other favorite topic, which is growing grounds nowadays, is around the global capability centers and accountability and execution has a very different meaning when you talk of large scale transformation projects that they do. And this issue shows up very clearly in a GCC led execution model. Global capability centers often execute extremely well. They deliver what they are asked for, but they are rarely given authority over outcomes. So you end up with a dangerous gap: strong delivery, weak ownership. Execution happens, but value creation stalls. Especially in India based GCC models, clarity on decision rights is far more important than delivery capability, is the way I see it. Now, we have talked of what hasn't worked. Let me also try and tell you what actually fixes execution. I see four broad pillars: clear decision rights. We know who owns what. That's very key. Second, fewer forums. Let's do lesser of meetings. Let's have people who matter who can come in and talk and sign off on the next steps. Outcome based matrix. Let's shift our vision to design matrix just for the sake of it and move towards business based outcomes. And execution improves when leaders deliberately design for it. clear decision right, fewer forums, outcome based matrix, visible consequences for inaction. In today's business environment, execution discipline is a competitive advantage. Now, I always tell my teams and my clients that treat execution just like you do an engineering activity. Good strategies fail quietly when execution has no owner. So it's important for us to understand that the best firms, the best portfolios treat execution as a design problem, not as a motivation problem. They don't assume alignment, they engineer it. So execution has to be intentionally designed. We should always remember that ownership bits governance, hands on, behavior bits alignment, and the value creation has to be linked with your strategic vision to ensure clarity, choice, and ultimately the business value that you aim to generate really gets achieved. So, this brings me to the end of today's episode. Thanks for being a patient listener. Thanks for your feedbacks, and that's what keeps me moving and coming up with newer and newer points of view that helps you run your business much, much better. Till next time, take care, thank you, and stay safe. Goodbye for now.